Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I want to do something a little different today. I'm going to walk you through how I directed this commercial a few years ago. I'll walk you through the gear, the concept, how I got the job, the process. So here is that advert.
When I was little, I knew that trees go on forever. That they are deep and steady. That the world sings in wind-stroked meadows. And every flying thing is a part of me. This place is a map of my joy. Where it began and where it endures. And I give it to you.
So I filmed this in, I believe, the summer of 2019. So we're talking about 2 years ago. And I produced, directed, edited, sound designed, and color graded this film. This isn't the edit project here. I just dragged the film in and I used DaVinci's Auto Cut to kind of make it easier for me to go around. The actual project was a lot messier, but I've no idea where it is. So, there's that. How did I get this job? So this was an advert for Devon Wildlife Trust, and I'd done a lot of work with them before for quite a few years, but always in kind of videographer role. So, I would go and shoot an event or go do an interview and some B-roll, and very much a one-man band sort of situation. But they knew that I was always pushing to do narrative work and always trying to be more creative. So they came to me one day and said, we want to give you a little bit more money to make something with a story. Now, this isn't actually the concept that I pitched. This was one of their own concepts that they wanted to do. So, jumped on board, and that's kind of how I got the job. So the initial concept that they pitched me, which is pretty similar to what you see here, is about a grandma and a granddaughter and how they are one and the same person, but are they really, sort of thing. So I took that and I steered it to the place of where we make the audience think that it's the same person, that is a memory, all the way to the end. And the way I kind of made it a little bit easier for the audience, as well as visually, to kind of get that across, was to introduce this sketchbook. So I added in this idea of this notebook, and I did that to make it a little bit easier for everyone to understand. And the whole idea was about adding the same book, so we think that it's the same person, but actually then showing the book in two different hands and showing a tree grown up along with, the lives of these people. The whole campaign is about leaving a legacy, leaving money in your will, and that's what I was trying to get across, showing the growth of the forest across the years. Now, budget-wise, I can't really tell you the costs, but what I will say is that it wasn't that much. I really pushed hard to kind of get the most for my money. But the percentages of how it breaks down is 10% was spent on pre-production. That included doing a location scout. 67% was spent on production, so that includes cast, crew, expenses, equipment hire, props, all of that. And then 21% was spent on post-production, which was the edit, the sound design, the grade, and the voiceover recording, and the actor's time for that voiceover. In terms of a schedule, it was 2 days pre-production, which covered casting and crewing up and designing a storyboard and everything like that, which admittedly it should have been more than 2 days, but I wanted this to speak bigger than the budget. The production day was a single day, so because we had Lexi, who is a young actor, you have to go by the rules and you have limited time frames that you can use young actors for. So anyone under, I want to say 16, it might be 18, can't quite remember. But you have to get the council permission, you have to have child safeguarding policies. To do it properly, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. And one of those hoops is keeping an eye on how long you're using them for, giving them the right amount of breaks, things like that. And post-production, I'm pretty sure it was 3 days. It's a while back now, so I can't quite remember. But I think it was a 2-day edit with a day for like VO and, color grading, sound design. It was actually a very simple project, really, because we storyboarded a lot of it beforehand. So this is quite a rudimentary storyboard. I storyboard a lot stronger now. But you'll see how a lot of the elements are there in the final film. So, the hand going through the meadow, the child running through the meadow, POVs of the forest, close-ups, books coming out, a butterfly. It's all there. Admittedly, that in the middle section of the film, things changed quite a lot in the structure. And there were some things that I wanted to get that I couldn't. So I had this really nice idea in my head of volunteers building some sort of bridge or barrier in the water, but we couldn't get any volunteers to come down and do it. So I had to scrap that because I thought it would have looked really nice. Water always looks nice on camera because you get the reflection, the movement, it just works. So didn't get that. But what I did get almost exactly is the start and the end. So if I play you the start, so you see there, we've got the hand, and then we've got the girl running through the forest. It's pretty much identical. The first two shots are the same. And admittedly, this order changes a little bit, but that very first intro, pretty much spot on. And then the ending, so we go for number 17. Where is it? Cool. So POV, so Edna is the grandma, Lexi is the daughter, granddaughter, I should say. So basically a POV of Lexi at the tree, and then number 18, she joins. So we see there, that's like pretty much the same shot. Then a POV of the notebooks. Again, it's, the same thing. And then I added in a POV shot here, which I do have in the storyboards, but it's a little bit lower down. I just thought it made sense as you see them look up to just add that POV in. Then number 20 and 21, they look up in awe. We get that. Same thing, slightly different angle. And then that final shot, the POV, and we did initially, there was this idea to have their hands on the tree. The problem is, that works fine for print and for digital. But in film, it's a very flat shot. You want to put the logo over the top. I have a feeling that is in the client cut, but this is my director's cut because it just didn't look that good. So that's the film. Now, in terms of cinematography for this one, so that was done by David Jones, really cool cinematographer. And we shot on the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K with Lomo anamorphic lenses. Now, these are very expensive and they're very heavy, which I hadn't really factored in because we spent the whole day walking quite deep into the forest. Really hot day, shot in September. So the whole crew chipped in carrying things. And there's one thing I could suggest, it's to really think about the logistics of the weight of the gear if you're going to be outdoors all day. But I knew from the get-go I wanted to shoot anamorphic because it just gives you that different quality. Without having to work too hard, you get a really good look. There's one shot that isn't anamorphic in here. So this butterfly shot actually was shot on the Sony FS700 in HD about 2-3 years before that. It worked. So, in a close-up like that, you can't really tell. It was shot on the SLR Magic 50mm prime lens, which I really liked, but I sold that ages ago. It was all shot natural light. We didn't have any lights with us. We had a reflector, which we used for bounce and for negative fill, which you can see really nicely actually in these final shots here. Dave just added in a negative fill on the right-hand side, so over here. And it maybe isn't super obvious, but when you can kind of feel that. I think it was also possibly there might have been a flag just to cut off some of the background light, but I might be wrong on that. Now, something to bear in mind if you do use anamorphic lenses is that they have a very far minimum distance focal point. So we had to use a diopter for this shot here, which is basically you screw it onto the front of the lens and it just allows you to shoot a little bit closer to get that close-up look. And the grade, because we shot this in RAW, I had quite a lot of pulling power, but I didn't really use it. So we shot very much with a LUT already in place, so it was nice and easy, and got to post-production, just dropped it on, tweaked the levels, and it pretty much worked. So with the cinematography, obviously, handheld is easier when you're kind of going about. I think we did carry a tripod with us the whole day, which is stupid. But I wanted that kind of natural, organic feel. And the thing is, it's so easy to get stuck just doing mids. So I made sure to get some wides and some close-ups and really break it up. Getting that wide to extreme close-up straight away works really well just to break it up. These butterfly sketches were actually drawn by my friend who I kind of paid for his time to do that. And yeah, great job there. So the real question is then, how did I direct this project? How did I work with the cast, work with the crew? So luckily, I already knew the young actress, Lexi. I'd worked with her before on another project. And, she's great. And that was absolutely no problem whatsoever. And Jenny, who played the older role, she was great as well. But the thing is, with commercials, you have to be pragmatic a lot more than narrative films, in the sense of often you just need them to be somewhere, to just stand somewhere and hold a product. It's not as enjoyable for an actor, or challenging, I should say. So you have to balance that pragmatic need that you have, but talking in the way that the actor wants to be spoken to. So, providing some sort of backstory, or whenever you do talk to them, it's not just stand here, look there. So this bridge, I remember when I was talking to Jenny about it, I was like, this is the bridge that you used to come to with your partner or come to when you were young all the time. And it's one of your favorite spots, and so you need to take a moment to kind of enjoy that moment, that memory, reflect, and just pause, give us a beat. Giving the actor more character to work with makes it more enjoyable for them, and it allows them to feel like they're bringing their skill set rather than just being a stand-in. Too often, we as filmmakers forget that actors have a whole wealth of experience and knowledge to bring to the table. And this shot with Lexi, with children, you do have to be a little bit more creative. Something I would say is don't be afraid to look stupid. So I'm pretty sure with this shot, I was actually off camera where she is looking, doing something stupid. Now, Lexi's great. I can kind of talk to her about what I'm after, and maybe not quite so much about a character-driven way as much as just a little bit more pragmatic, as I say. But again, just being inventive and using your crew around you to keep her energy up and make sure that we're getting what we need. So that's how I kind of worked with the actors. And in terms of the crew, really it's just about leading by example, really kind of trying to give them as much creative freedom as you can. But I will admit, because I've been a DP in the past, I feel like on this one I should have given Dave more license than I did, because I was very much, thinking in terms of a camera head. So that was a learning curve for me. But as much as you can, kind of allowing them to offer up their own suggestions, where exactly should we put the camera, or how can we best light this? How can we get the best shot? So we actually shot the day pretty much, in order. It was very much kind of just following the storyboards. We just went through the whole thing, apart from the first two shots. So these two shots of them running or walking through the field, we did at the very end of the day, so the sun would be lower in the sky. We started the shoot at midday at 12 o'clock, obviously, and we did that in the forest. So obviously I'd prefer to start earlier, but crew had to get there for certain reasons as well, to do with what time I wanted the light versus what time Lexi was allowed to be there. 12 o'clock was our start time. So that meant the sun was going to be right up above us, which is much easier to make look nice when you're in the forest and you have dabbled light. if you have top-down light from the sun on an exposed area, it's not going to look very good. So going into the forest, we have this nice kind of filter to break up that sunlight. And that way we get contrast, we get interest. But to do that, you have to think about that beforehand. You know, before you've even got there on the day, you need to be thinking about those things. And that's not the only thing. So you also, it sounds a bit stupid, but you have to think about every aspect when you're producing and directing a commercial. So in September, and you get a lot of ticks in the forest. So making sure the crew were all prepared for that, knowing what to wear, knowing what to do if you find one. And then, because this was quite an obscure place to find, I created this location document which tries to make it as easy as possible for the crew to find it. The last thing you want to do is be starting at 12, but not have crew turn up until 1. So, you know, everything you can do beforehand, and that's using apps like Sunseeker, where you can track the sun's movement in any location. That's super helpful, and that will allow you to plan a little bit better. So at the end of the day, when the sun was a little bit low in the sky, we could get these shots. We weren't quite in the right place just because of the route we'd taken, but you can see here that we're getting some nice light coming through. I did sound design the whole thing, and to do that, I used different stock libraries out there to kind of get that sound that I want, to add in different wind, different bird sounds. Because this was a wildlife trust, I had to be quite careful to try and make sure I wasn't using bird songs from other countries, because that has been picked up before on another project I did for them, and I tried so hard, and like the only one obscure thing I got wrong, someone noticed. So, you know your audience. And just in case you're wondering where I got the music from, all of my commercial work, I usually use Artlist, just because it has a lot of great powerful tools and a lot of good music, but it's also just affordable compared to MusicBed, which I love using for my YouTube videos as a creator. For my corporate or commercial work, I tend to use Artlist because it does the job 90% of the time. It's also really good for sound effects, something I've recently started using it for, and it's also even got footage, if in case you want to use that for stock footage. I'll leave a link down below to get 2 months free subscription to Artlist. So my final bit of advice, if you have a commercial coming up, is to plan ahead as much as possible, and that requires you to think about everything. So where's the light going to be if you're shooting it, or just so you can schedule the day. What does the location challenges look like? Is it going to have access to power, to water, to food, things like that? And then on the day, just have as much preparation as you can ready, good to go. So any forms you need to have filled out, get them done early. Any equipment that you need to get set, get there early, do that. So yeah, let me know if you enjoy that. Happy to do more of these if people find that interesting. But yeah, otherwise, see you soon.